Hi, Morella. It's great to be chatting with you again. And hello to everybody out there in YouTube, podcast, or whatever land that you're in. Welcome and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you here today with us. And actually, I was curious because I think we chatted a very long time ago, and our topic last time was CBDCs. In a nutshell, because yeah, I know that today's discussion topic is AI in banking. I am curious to hear your thoughts on yeah, what happened on CBDC front, if you are to make a short summary for our watchers.
Sure. Let's for those watching in, very simple. The Bank for International Settlement just did its annual CBDC report, and 94% of the central banks in the world are doing CBDC research, and they encompass some 98% of the world GDP. So we've got the big ones to watch are, of course, the CBDCs for China, which is still the first and the leader in the CBDC race, even though so they're sort of number one, if you will, in the marketplace. And we're all watching India, the digital euro, the digital sterling. And we're watching others that maybe are not so loved by people, which is the digital ruble for Russia. Um, and we're looking at the digital real in Brazil. And if these countries all sort of put them together, they spell out BRICS, BRICS. And South Africa is also looking at it, particularly a wholesale central bank digital currency. So we're looking at a change in how we view money and how money will be transferred digitally. And we owe it all, ready? We owe it all to cryptocurrency. Whether you love crypto or hate crypto, that's not the issue. Crypto was the spark that got central banks going digital or furthering their digital efforts, because money is already digital. I hear that one all the time. But going to that next level of digitization with tokenization and making a new payment system that abandons the cost and the slowness of the old system and looks forward to something that is new, faster, cheaper, and more accessible to people. So that's where we are with CBDC. And of course, I can't help but say this. The United States right now is looking at passing a law to outlaw central bank digital currency. So what can you say? There's various positions on CBDC out there, and some of them highly positive, and some, like the United States, who view central bank digital currency as the devil, as something that is
Yeah.
not. I was actually asked a question. Is it part of a religious question? Is central bank digital currency the second coming of Satan or something? People want to know this stuff. I don't get it, but okay. I still
Yeah.
think it's fabulous technology, and it's going to change all of our lives for the better.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I think that the US is also going to pass a bill on stable coins. So I think there are some chances that they don't go full against CBDC. But now, since you mentioned the love and hate and digital transformation, the topic of today's discussion was generative AI in banking. Love and hate, why? Because, what triggered our interest was the findings of Boston Consulting Group report you revealed around generative AI, around how banks are deploying this technology or not, their intention to deploy, how much they invest in talent regarding a generative AI in the talent of their team. So, but first, let's clarify a bit the terms. Can you explain what is AI, what is generative AI, and the difference between them?
Sure. AI is the largest subset. And, actually, I was prepared for some of this. So AI is a generic term, meaning essentially that there is some kind of thought process that goes in behind the computations that a computer does for you, okay? So we look at AI as the catch-all expression, meaning all of the subsectors underneath it. Now, I've chosen this particular graphic because it only has 3 subsections. Many of them have up to a dozen, and you can go for generative AI, then you can go to large language models below it. You can slice these circles many ways, but for the vast majority of us, and I used to do this at IBM long ago because I used to sell AI at IBM back when I was in Singapore briefly. Anyway, but what we have to be thinking of are 2 essential terms, and one is called machine learning. And that's really easy for people to understand. So you've got AI as the general catch-all term, okay? And AI in its most basic sense, you give the computer some numbers, mostly numbers, yes, some unstructured data, meaning words, but mostly numbers, and you'll get a response out, and it's somewhat algorithmic. In other words, it's not an algorithm, I understand that, but at its most basic level, it's similar or akin to an algorithm in that you have to tell it a lot about what it's going to do. Then we can go to machine learning, and that's the easy one. People get this relatively easily because they've heard about it. Machine learning, meaning the machine has to learn, which means that a human has to tell it whether its answer is correct or incorrect, and it learns from that. So you've seen this with the most basic example is, you give an AI a picture of a car, and it's red. And the AI says, that's a rose, it's a red rose. And you say, and you, or actually a back office somewhere in China, in the far western area of China, or somewhere in India, or actually a lot in Africa. They have massive staffs of people who say, okay, that's not a rose, that's a car, wrong answer. And then it tells it, yeah, this is a car, right? So if you start at that basic level, then you can get deeper into, well, that's a red Ferrari as opposed to a red Toyota. But my point is only to say that the machine learns from its interaction with human beings. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then we have the next step, which is generative AI. And inclusive of these are large language models and GPTs, which are generative pre-trained transformers. That's the GPT in Chat
Yeah.
GPT. And generative AI and LLMs and GPTs are all subsets, or sorry, generative AI is the larger category, GPT and LLMs are subcategories. But what they do is you can give the computer a tremendous amount of information. And once it gets this information, you can then ask questions and it can give you answers based on what it knows from the texts that it's got. So it can't know beyond what you've given it. But as you've seen with large language models, you can basically give these computers the sum total, or a big portion of the sum total of human knowledge that's been digitized, and these GPTs or LLMs are very, very smart, but they are creative. They are able to come up with answers from their data, and if they don't like the answer they have from their data, they are unfortunately prone to make up answers all by themselves. So
the hallucination part.
That's sort of a problem, right? Especially now, I'm going to highlight that now because there can be no business more than banking that relies on getting the answer right each and every time, because banking is a trust business and it doesn't do well with, oh, I got that answer wrong. The interest rate for your account is 4%, not 5%. Last week I said 5, I was wrong. Sorry. That's the kind of errors that banks can't deal with.
Yeah. And regarding, yeah, you provided the definition for artificial intelligence and machine learning. Actually, the banks have been deploying these technologies already for a long time, right?
Look, I used to sell this stuff. Look, I'm not so ancient, and my time at IBM was not so long ago. 2018, 17, we were selling IBM's Watson product. And, I always joke to this day that Watson of 2018 is pretty stupid when compared to OpenAI. But the
Yeah.
point is, though, we've been selling artificial intelligence, particularly machine learning systems, into banks for a long time. And they were
Yeah.
big users of fraud detection, credit card fraud detection, huge amounts of data coming in, and the program machine learning algorithm looks for anomalous behavior. What's normal in its view and what's abnormal.
Yeah.
And that's not new. That's been around for a decade
For
almost. So,
decades.
so, you
Yeah.
know, it's sort of hard to hear people like, well, we're going to use AI. Well, no, AI is already at work
Already.
doing a lot of things.
Yeah, maybe now the twist came with this generative AI based on what you are saying that this technology, okay, interprets information but can also trigger some wrong answers. And maybe this could be one of the explanations behind the BCG report that revealed that only 18% of global financial institutions have a well defined generative AI strategy. So why is this slow adoption? In a way, you kind of, yeah, hint towards the answer by
Yeah,
clarifying, yeah, banks need to be right with their
yeah.
information. But let's
So
see,
the
why is the gap between the
so
hype and reality?
yeah, yes, you nailed it. Thank you for using my favorite word, AI hype. And as we start this discussion, let me make something abundantly clear to people that when a bank's AI gives the wrong answer, it will not be OpenAI that will pay the fines and penalties. It will not be your consulting company that pays the fines and penalties. It will not be McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, any of these. It will not be Microsoft, any of the people who are trying to sell you on Gen AI are likely to be selling you partially based on hype. And it's not all wrong. Look, I love AI. I worked in the business and I know that we are going to have a wonderful AI future. The question is only how fast are you going to get there? And the AI providers and the consultants make it sound easy, like that future is very quickly.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, the banks have only one, their biggest asset is trust. And if they use Gen AI or any AI product and that trust starts to be diminished, they're the losers on this and they pay. So that's why I separate hype from reality. And so behind my head is a chart. It's from the Boston Consulting Group report. And by the way, the headlines and all these are from forgive me, I'm going to do this. These are all directly headlines from my Substack newsletter. I write every day on Substack and I have to do a headline piece. So I put the big graph with the headline. But anyway,
but we thank you
um,
for that because yeah, it educates readers to learn and they learn faster and with great data from yeah the reports that you are summarizing. Okay, returning to
yeah, so what this report said very clearly was interesting is, bankers aren't Luddites. They understand that AI is going to change the planet. And a full 85% of them in this Boston Consulting Group BCG report were clear that they believe that it's going to be highly disruptive and transformational to the industry. And that's fundamentally good. Bankers get that AI is important. Okay, fine. But the reality is that only 18% had a well-defined Gen AI strategy, and and even worse, only 7% of the surveyed banks actually defined and implemented Gen AI delivery teams. So only 7% of the banks out there actually have a delivery team where they can actually say, we got somebody in-house, we can hopefully build something and deliver it to for internal use, more than likely. But so the problem is, it's really difficult for banks to get people. They don't have the staff for it. And they're not ready to go yet. So the other part of this was, of course, talent. How do you get talent to come? And BCG came out with this report. Um, talent strategy fully implemented for now. 2% of the respondents said they had, the talent that they wanted for now. And I have to joke by wondering if that 2% said, yeah, we don't want anybody, therefore, we're fulfilled. But the reality is most of these banks are desperately trying to get a hold of AI talent. The market is, God bless the young people who are in this business because they can name their price. But the reality is, most financial institutions can't even staff up, even if they throw large sums of money at the problem. So banks are in a very, very difficult position right now with regard to AI, both fighting the hype, understanding the risk to trust with their clients, and just fundamentally finding the staff who are willing to go to work and do the dirty work of putting these systems together. And it's very hard for them.
Yeah, but now I'm a bit curious because the other extent, okay, there are banks that are deploying this technology, but they are deploying it to mostly boost productivity and not necessarily to reshape critical functions or to reinvent new business models that are more, yeah, sustainable. So if we go on the other side for banks that are already deploying AI, yeah, how sustainable are their solutions that are based more on productivity? Can this lead to, I don't know, increased energy consumption? Or if you go on the job markets, this productivity usually is more based on automation and might take some people out of their jobs. What do you think?
So the answer is we don't know yet. So there's two different questions there. Let's talk about
Yeah.
energy last, and let's talk about the use of AI for productivity gains in banking. And the answer is there has yet to be a definitive study that shows that Gen AI is applied at Bank X and Bank X saved 20%. What you name the figure, it doesn't really matter. But we don't really have that direct evidence out there. Now, we have lots of hints. We have lots so for example, I don't
So
remember
yeah,
the
yeah.
name of I don't
Sorry to
remember the
interrupt.
name. Yeah, please
Yeah, let's
go.
see exactly because I said productivity, but this is a broad topic. So there are some banks like a bank, for example, they implemented AI. Besides productivity, what are the use cases for
Okay.
generative AI at the bank's level to see exactly what they
So
are
the
disrupting?
most popular use cases right now for larger banks, the large global banks who have active AI programs, are basically AI systems that help internal employees. And that's a key issue because when you're helping internally, you're a co-pilot. The human being is still flying the airplane, but the Gen AI or the system is helping to provide some kind of information stream based on proprietary data or information from the company. And the human being still has the ability to override that decision, or perhaps the Gen AI is great and it's giving them all the right information, or use it and save them time for researching, saving them time for looking at regulations, reg tech uses, know your client, client facing stuff where you
Yeah, yeah,
can
yeah.
actually find out a lot about the client more quickly than you could by reading through past reports. So, that kind of internal stuff is active right now. And We don't have hard numbers, but there's enough people using it that, and enough companies using it that they say it's good and it works, and that's perfectly believable to me. What you hit on, which is very clear and very important, is that with maybe a few exceptions, for the major part, Gen AI is not changing banking. It's not changing payments. It's not changing the underlying mechanism of how these things work. What it's changing is how you, the client, someday will interact with that system. Let's make payments because payments are just easy to visualize. And we can visualize this future where we talk to our phone and I say, talk to the phone and I say, I want to pay somebody. I want to pay Mirella. And it says, which Mirella? My friend Mirella, from papers. And oh, that Mirella. And, how much do you want to pay her? And I can have that conversation. The payments are still going to go on Visa, MasterCard, hopefully central bank digital currency, hopefully stable coins, right? Those are what we call the payment rails. Gen
Yeah.
AI is not going to touch those payment rails, just like Gen AI, for the most part, isn't going to touch the banking inside systems that you get 4% interest on your account or whatever. That's not Gen AI's domain. Gen AI in banking is for the most part making it easier for you, the client, to access the bank and for the bank to be able to give you better answers to your questions if you are in fact dealing with the human being. Now, having said that, I'm going to make one exception, and somebody I know out there is thinking this. Gen AI is being used for payment verification now. They're starting to look at it. Just as I said before, that AI was used for payment fraud. They're starting to look at Gen AI for payment fraud. It's still early days, but yes, that would be working at the gears or machine level of payments, and that would be a great thing, no doubt about it. But by and large, we're looking at information back and forth, not changing the gears of the financial system.
Okay. And now returning a bit to this idea of the sustainability of the models generative AI proposes. And here you can think of everything, the energy consumption, or yeah,
Yeah.
the future of jobs, or I don't know.
Well, those are two real issues here. So let's talk about energy consumption. The rise in energy consumption due to AI, depending on whose estimate you look at, can be anywhere between 20-30% plus. Basically, the vision is to have what we call ubiquitous AI available to everyone, anyone, anywhere, any place, and that's wonderful. And we all agree that the technology is new and it will get more energy efficient. That's good. But where is that energy efficiency decrease? So energy is going down, but the number of users is going to go up, right? So we're going to have two graphs going in two different directions. And what we know now is that Gen AI uses a lot of electricity. It uses also a lot of water for cooling. And it has a very large environmental impact. In fact, the one that I really love, because the one statistic I love because it put it in human context, was that every time that you go to um, Copilot, Microsoft Copilot or DALL-E, the image generating software, basically every time you generate an image on one of those, it takes the equivalent of a cell phone battery, an average cell phone battery charge.
Wow,
Wow.
it's
So,
huge.
so when I sit, okay, so here's a good example. When I sit down and do one of my Gen AI produced graphics for my newsletter, it's hellish. I don't get it the first time. I have to do 100 tries before I get one that's good. So I've charged my cell phone battery 100 times over. And that's being multiplied by the millions of users who are all doing this. So, I think that makes it physically comprehensible to people how much energy this stuff uses. Now, ChatGPT, if you ask it a question, it definitely uses less electric. That's good, but
Yeah.
that's the energetic supply, and there's better qualified people out there than me to talk about it. But it's a real issue, and we cannot make light of it. Okay, it's a
Okay.
thing, and the other issue is that we discussed productivity. Now, anybody out there knows that when somebody mentions AI and productivity, that's a code word for layoffs and job reduction. That's
Yeah.
just reality. So
Yeah.
another study is out there, and this is by Deloitte. Oh, sorry, I think I got the wrong one. I got the wrong one here. Another study out there, and I don't remember. I didn't pick the provider of this, but anyway, they're basically laying out that 70% of workers will need, and this is finance or global talent workers, are going to need to be reskilled. Okay. So if you, let's just apply that to financial services for a moment. So you got 70% of your bankers who are going to need to be reskilled. I'm going to ask the rather cynical question, which is what bank is going to really spend all the money to retrain 70% of its staff? And then another survey, which I don't have a graphic for, basically they talked to hiring managers. And the hiring managers said that they would rather hire someone with AI experience than with more experience in the actual subject matter, the domain of expertise.
Yeah.
So, we've got a real problem coming up here because 70% of workers are going to expect to get reskilled. And they're asking a lot of their employer to basically
Yeah.
say, reskill 70% of it. And I don't think it's going to happen. Call me cynical, but I think that people have to retrain themselves and fast, and they should be doing it now. And if you're listening to this because you're retraining yourself, that's good. If you learn nothing else from this podcast, is start your retraining now, because expecting these companies to do it for you isn't going to happen. So how sustainable is it from an inside corporate employment perspective? We can argue, and I argue that it's going to take longer than advertised, but I do not argue that it's not, I don't say ever that it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So the reality is this Gen AI is going to make people redundant. It is going to make jobs more efficient, meaning you simply need less people to do the work. That will happen. How quickly it happens is up for argument, but that's your future, all of our futures that we have to look forward to. And so it's certainly sustainable. Look, here's the sad part, and I'm sorry if I'm exceedingly blunt about this. But the day, remember earlier I said we need hard reports that show, how much we did this is how much we saved. The day that report comes out, which says we put Gen AI in for our call center, we saved 40%. I'm making up a number.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The second that report comes out and is deemed credible, half of the banks on the planet are going to run to convert their call centers or service operation or some internal function to AI. So yeah, it's sustainable, because if they can show that they're saving large chunks of money, it's not sustainable. It is the preferred route, the preferred means of accomplishing many work tasks. So yeah, it's very sustainable from a financial perspective from the financial institution. It is questionably sustainable if you're one of that 70% who is looking to be retrained, and it is unsustainable with the current levels of technology that we have if you are looking at it from an energy perspective.
Yeah. Then in a way, we should be happy. I mean, happy, yeah, with some inverted commas, if we think about the findings of the BCG report, because yeah, the banks seem to be, excited about it, but actually, when they come to doing it, the figures show that, yeah, they don't have that much talent hired here,
Yeah, look,
and the
you know,
strategy is not already aligned with AI.
yeah, and look, and my entire take on this is that we are combating hype, and banks are combating hype, taking AI at their own speed, and this is what they read every day. What are the risks? They're looking at this ever longer list. I have the, this here, how this was a consultant report about the top 10 AI risks. Great. But you read somebody else's consulting report and there's another 5 that are not on this list. You have this
Yeah.
very long list of risks, and they are surmountable risks. They're manageable risks, but you
But
have to learn how to manage them.
if you are to name a few of these risks, the headlines, what are
Yeah.
top concerns?
Look, the biggest one, look, the biggest fears for all banks are that um, the artificial intelligence um, is discriminatory or biased.
The bias, okay.
That's number one, because the lawsuits that would come out of that would be insurmountably large. Um, and it's already shown that, look, this is the ridiculous reality of AI. AI is trained on the past sum of human knowledge, and anybody living in 2024 and looks back at 1965 knows that things weren't very beautiful in 1965 for many ethnic minorities, many
Yeah.
people. So, this is what it's being trained on. So when people say if AI has a bias, it's not if it has a bias, it definitely has a bias.
Yeah.
The question is, can you confine AI to a complete subject area with in-house training data that reduces that bias, or largely, not completely, but largely eliminates it? So bias is the one. And the other one that literally scares, and this one I think is actually becoming less with time, is Gen AI's ability to hallucinate and make up
Oh, yeah,
answers.
yeah. Hmm.
But I think they've got a good handle on that, and I think it's still an issue, believe me, because we're both in the writing business, and I increasingly read Gen AI produced articles on central bank digital currency, and they all have great headlines, and occasionally I'll click on one and I'll read the article, and it is factually inaccurate in 4 or 5, 6 places, and then 1 or 2 places it writes something that's complete nonsense. It's not a matter of being wrong. It just, who edited this? The answer is no one. But the point is, um, so I think that the hallucinations they're getting a handle on, but these are major issues. There's fear that they'll start projects and the projects within the bank will be too expansive. There's
Hmm.
fear that, so there's fear of turning it on for outside clients. So what you're seeing right now is all of this work done with Gen AI, all of it internal to the bank, because you still have that employee who's the pilot of the airplane, and the co-pilot is the Gen AI. And the day that you make Gen AI the actual pilot of the airplane, talking to your clients, it's going to happen. No, there's
Yeah.
no question about it. But
Yeah.
that's good. That's going to be a scary moment for many financial institutions.
Yeah. But now to sum it up, okay, I am the CEO of a big bank. I read a lot of Gen AI benefits, risks, sustainability, yes, no, all this, and yeah, I kind of started doubting what should I do next. So if you are to summarize like three things that are need to be on top of my agenda to get ready for what's coming up next, as the CEO
Sure.
of a bank, what should I put on top of my agenda? Three things.
So I'm going to take something from my prior book. Okay. My first book was called Innovation Lab Excellence, and it was all about how banks can go digital through using innovation teams. And innovation teams solve a fundamental problem that's exactly the same problem that Gen AI teams have, or AI teams in banks have, which is you have a very small resource source that has to be shared within a larger bank. So you can't have each business unit going out and hiring an AI guy because you have one AI guy in a business unit of 1,000 people. What's he going to do? Nothing. You or she going to do nothing. So the point is, so number one, if you're a senior executive or any executive in a bank, understand that generative AI and the AI revolution is here. It is real. Yes, it is overhyped, but that doesn't mean the hype is all about timing. All right. So this is going to happen. Gen AI is going to be a critical part of your bank or your financial institution's future. Go with it. Number two, understand that in order to build in this environment is very difficult because you don't have the staff to build an application, to build something that can be used internally to your team. So the only way that you're going to do this is with basically an AI team. So we talked about innovation lab teams back in 2017 and 18, and now we're talking about AI teams, a group of people all charged with building and using AI so that you have what I call critical mass of people to be able to actually do something. And it's their job, not the profit center manager's job, to figure out what's the most likely candidate where we can use AI in some meaningful way to get some ready, small success. And that leads to my third point. Do not believe, okay, if you are this senior manager, look for small successes. And if your AI team comes to you and says, we want to put this entire section of the bank on AI. We want to do a complete, ready? This is the telltale word to be afraid. When you hear this, be afraid. And that is if an innovation team or a Gen AI team comes to you and says, we want to disrupt the bank and do this, be afraid. What you're looking for is small, definable projects that can be quantifiably uh, uh, proven to be successful. And now it doesn't have to be just money is the way you quantify it. Hopefully money is a good way to start, but either time savings, happy employees, but there's got to be some quantifiable way to say this AI project worked and here's how. But you're looking for small projects, not large disruptive projects, because they're always coming next year. More money, more bodies, and they'll come next year. You're looking for these smaller projects. So AI is real. Build a specialized AI team. It's the only way you can do it in your institution. And make sure they're focusing on bite-sized pieces, smaller projects that are easy to digest. All right, those would be my three recommendations. And and it's really funny. They really, I should take my first book and rewrite it for Gen AI. All I'd have to do is go through the text with Word, search and search and replace like digital for artificial intelligence, and I'd have a new book. And and it would be very it would still be relevant.
Great. Thank you. I like that we talked a lot about technology and innovation, but you give it's such a humanizing touch with this idea to focus on people, on talent, and taking baby steps. Usually these are human traits that technology is starting to
Yeah,
reshape them.
And look, this is the problem with the hype. The hype is making teams, people think very, very big. And there's nothing wrong with, I'm not saying thinking big is wrong.
But the
I'm
pace of
saying,
action should be slower and to analyze more critical thinking.
yes, and all being mindful of these risks that we're all facing when, so these are, this is the humanization of AI and what it is to make it work for real in a large corporate environment or a financial service environment. So there's going to be challenges. It's coming, but believe me, it's hard work and it's not, oh, this is going to be easy as sold by many when you read the hype reports out there.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Richard, for today's interview. And I'm curious what we are going to talk next because every time we have a different topic.
Well, yeah, that's a good one. Well, actually, look, these are my two main focuses. Look, I focus for those who are interested. You can reach, if you disagree with anything that I've said today, if you agree with something I said, if you want to reach out to me and say, you're wrong, reach out to me on either Twitter, on LinkedIn, where I write every day. And if you enjoy this kind of content, I write long form articles every day on Substack. So it's richturrin.substack.com. Turrin has two R's in it, doesn't matter. But the point is only I'm available on all these social media platforms. I write mostly about central bank digital currency, our cashless future. The name of the newsletter is the same as my book, Cashless. So I write about all of the things that are going to impact our cashless future, and that is tokenization, stable coins, generative AI, because I used to work in the business, okay? So these are all going to have a profound effect on how we relate to payment and how we relate to money in our future. It's going to change. And that's fundamentally good for everybody.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Marilla.